Hi everyone, welcome back to the Programming Fields. I'm Umesh Rana, and in the last video, we built something super powerful, a reusable table component in Livewire 3 with Laravel 12 Starter Kit. We added sorting and pagination inside a single dynamic table component, and that way we stopped repeating the same table code across multiple pages. Now in the today's video, we are taking that same idea of reusability and applying it to the forms. And we will build a fully dynamic reusable form component in Livewire 3 with Laravel 12 Starter Kit that can handle text inputs, text areas, selects and checkboxes. Also we will handle file and image uploads with previews. There will be real-time validation, dynamic buttons rendering for create, update and cancel actions, and we will handle different modes of the form like create, edit and view, all from the same form component. And at the end, you will see how this one reusable form will save you hours of repeating form code across your Laravel application. So stick around because this one is a game changer. But before starting, if you have not already subscribed to Programming Fields channel, please do subscribe and support the channel because creating featured contents for you takes a lot of effort. Alright, let's get started. So I'm inside previous Laravel 12 Starter Kit project setup with Livewire 3. If you have followed the last video, your project should look similar. So we will begin by creating a fresh Livewire component for having a common form in which we will have different types of inputs. Okay, so let's quickly jump to the terminal, and here I will create a fresh Livewire component. So I will name it custom form and I will keep it inside a common directory. So let's create it. PHP artisan make Livewire common dot, I will give a name as custom form. And yes, the component has been created. Now let's check out the component. So here inside the resources, views, Livewire, we have common, and inside this we have this custom form component created. In the last video, we created this custom table component. Alright. Now in the next step, I will create one more component so that I can render that common form here for managing or creating the user, because anyhow we have to call that component in order to see the results, right? So here I have already this user management listing, and here just above this listing I will create one button which will have add user functionality. Okay, and by clicking on that button I will open that form. So let's create one more component inside this user management. So firstly I'll check out the directory. We have users folder. Now inside this we have this users listing in which we called that common table component. Now just above this I will create one button. So I will name it add user, and I will create flux button component here, and the variant will be primary, and I will pass the color as indigo, icon will be plus circle. Okay, and let's add class as cursor pointer, and let me dock the sidebar window, and I will give the button label as add user. And for aligning this to right side, I will wrap this in a div which will have div class text and I will close this div outside, and let's add some margin from bottom, margin bottom as 4. Okay, this is fine. Now next we will create component so that when we will click on this add user, we will have one model. Okay, so let's navigate to this terminal, and I will create one more component inside users directory, users dot user form. Okay, so the component has been created. Now let's render this component here. So inside this user form component, I will use Flux model component. So I will search for official documentation, Flux UI dev. And in the sidebar, we have the list of components. I will search for model. And here we have this Flux model trigger. Okay. So I'll just copy this model component and I will remove this div and I will paste it here. This is our create user model and I will give the name as common so that we can reuse this model for creating and updating the user. So let's add a name as user form model. Okay. And I will increase this width as 32 rem. And here I will change the title as create user. And let's add the description as create a new user by filling up the form below. Okay. And here we will call our common form component. Let's remove these things. And here we will call common form component. So let's render that component first. I will call livewire colon common dot custom form. Now inside this custom form component, I will add one label just in order to check are we able to render this component. This is common form component. Okay. Now let's navigate inside this user form. And by clicking on that button, we have to trigger this model. So for opening the Flux model, either we can use this Flux model trigger. That means we will have to wrap this button inside this Flux model trigger, or either we can use Livewire methods. So inside this Livewire methods, we have the function to open and close the model. So as of now, I will dispatch one event on this button click from this listing one. So I will define on click event inside this. So let's add wire click and I will use dispatch function. Now inside dispatch, I will pass one event as open model. Now inside this model, we have to pass the model name that we want to open, because we will have to specify which model we want to open by clicking on this button. So let's add model name as well as a parameter. So I will define one object here and then I will create one key as model name. And here I will pass the model name that we want to open by clicking on this. So we have the model name as user form model that we have already set it here. So let's copy this model name and here let's pass this model name as user form model. Also, I will define one more property which will be action type basically, because we can use this model in different mode for create, view and for update as well. So this is create mode because we are going to create a new user by clicking on this add user button. So let's pass action type as create. Now let's copy this event and we will have to listen it inside form. So let's navigate to this respective class of this component. So inside app, livewire, users, this has user form. Now inside this, let's capture this listener using on attribute. Okay. And inside this, we'll have to listen that action by passing that action, basically event name. And in order to listen this, I will define one function that will perform based on this listener. So I will name it as open model. And let's import this on attribute using livewire. And if you remembered, we have passed two attributes from this action, which is model name and action type. So let's receive these two parameters here as an argument. So let's pass model name and I will initialize it with null. And also we have action type. Let's initialize it with null. Now inside this, I will use flux model function. If you will check out this documentation, here we have this flux model show function. So let's import this flux class and let's pass this model name dynamically here as model name. Now let's navigate to this listing component again. And here we will have to import that form component, which is user form, right? So just below this button, I will call that user form component here. So we will write Livewire users, and then we have user form component. Now let's navigate to the browser, and in the application, let's click on add user. Yes, by clicking on add user, we have this model opened, and inside that model, we have called this common form component, which is also rendered inside this. Now in the next step, we have to design the common form component. That means the common form component will be rendering input fields basically based on the given props, and the props will be basically input fields. Okay, so let's navigate to the code editor again, and inside the user form here, just above this, I will create one public property and I will create one array. So inside this array, I will define a couple of fields which will be basically type of array, and these will specify input fields which we will be rendering inside the common form component. So I will define public $form fields and I will define one array. Now inside this array, I will define one more key just like fields. Okay, this will specify form fields basically. So I will be keeping this in a separate array because we will have buttons array as well. Now inside this fields array, I will create one more array of fields. Okay, and in the first array, I will define one key as type. So this type will be input. Input means input type text. Okay, next I will set name property, which will be like name. So according to this module, I'm going to create user here, in which we will need username, email, password, and something created at date, right? So let's add these fields here in the array. So now in the next attribute, I will define label, which will have input label basically. So in the label, we can define like full name. Also we can set placeholder. This will be like enter your full name. Okay. And further we can set the validation rule from here so that we can apply the validation rules dynamically. Let's add validation for this field, and this will be required string, and I will set max to 255. Now I will just replicate this array and I will add it for next field, which will be email. In the label, I will change this to email address, and the placeholder will be enter your email address. In the validation, I will set this to required email and unique, and this will check from users table email column. Now next, I will add phone number. So this will be phone number, just like this, and the label will be phone number. Enter your phone number, and this will be required digits, and in the digits I will set this to 10. Okay, now here in this array we have these three fields of the same type, which is type of input. Now I need one field which will be type of select, so that we can render one select component which will have multiple options, right? So let's define one more field of nationality. So I will add type as select, and this name will be nationality, label will be nationality, okay. And in the placeholder, I will change this to select nationality. In the validation, this will be required and a string. Also, we need options inside this select. So I will define one array of options in which we will have options, label and value. So we can create associative array just like this is India, okay. And we can add other countries as well. So I will add USA. So as of now, I will add only 2 options here. You can add according to your need. Now next, I will add one more field for handling the file. So for the user, I want to upload profile picture as well. So let's define one more input type of file here. Okay. This will be type of image, and in the name, I will set this will be avatar and the label will be like profile picture. We don't need this placeholder. And here in the validation, I will set this to nullable, means the profile picture will be optional, but if it is uploaded, then we have to check for image only. So this will be image, and I will set max size to 2 MB by adding this 2048 KB. And here I will pass one label as info, basically just in order to display one information message just below that file input. And in that label, I will display one hint as maximum file size 2 MB allowed, just like this. Okay. Now after these fields, here we have this fields array. Now I will create one more array of buttons. Okay. So in the button, we can have 2 types of button, just like submit or any cancel button. So let's define one array here, and in which the first type will be like submit button, that will help submitting the form. And the label will be just like create, and we can change this label conditionally based on form mode, just like if the form is opened in the create mode, then the label will be create. If it is opened in the edit mode, we will have to change the label to update. So that we can handle it conditionally. And this button variant will be primary. So we are using this Flux component that supports variant of primary, default, danger, etc. And also we can set icon if needed. This is optional. So I will give icon name as document plus, which is basically hero icons. If you need any reference, you can check out the hero icons here. And here we have defined the form fields public property, right? So we can access this form fields public property directly inside this user form component view. All right. If we'll put dump form fields here, and if we'll click on add user, yeah, we have 2 arrays rendered as fields and buttons. Inside fields, we have 5 arrays, and in the buttons, we have 1 array. Now I will pass this form fields array as a props to this common component, so that based on the given props, we will render those components in the form. So for passing the props, I will use colon fields attribute because we are passing variable here. So we have form fields. Later we will pass more props here. So let's navigate to this custom form component. And firstly, we'll have to come to this custom form class component, which is inside Livewire common custom form class. And here I will create one mount function, which is Livewire lifecycle method basically, so that whenever this component will be mounted, we will receive those props which are being passed from this user form. So we have the props name as fields. So let's copy this fields name, and here we will define one array fields, and I will initialize it with empty array. And just above this, I will define it as public $fields. Okay. Now inside this mount function, I will assign this parameter to this public variable. Okay. This is function mount. Now inside this, let's assign $this fields is equals fields. Now by using this way, we will be able to capture this fields inside this custom form. Now let's navigate to this custom form view, and here, now let's add dump and die $fields. And if we refresh, yes, we have the fields and we have the buttons array. Now let's add condition in order to render the form fields. So let's remove this label, and instead of div, I will open one form element, and firstly I will define wire submit handler inside this. This will be wire submit function, and I will define one submit handler as handle submit. This will be our common submit handler of all the forms. So I will show you that how we will handle this form submission. This is our common form, and here I will add one class property, and let's add class as a space y of 6, so that between every form inputs we will have proper spacing. Now let's render the fields here. So I will remove this dd, and I will add for each fields. And if you have noticed, inside fields array we have one more key as fields, and there we have all the input fields. Okay, so we will have this and for each. Here we are rendering form fields. Now based on the type, we will have to render different components. So if we'll check out this user form props, we have type as input. Okay, so let's extract this type here. So what I will do, I will open switch statement here, and inside switch I will pass type. Okay, now in the case, firstly let's handle for input. If it is input type, so I will add one comment here. Type 1 will be for input, condition for handling different fields. Now inside this case, I will pass case as input. If it is type of input, then I will use flux input component, and this will have self closing. Now we will pass different properties just like label. So we have name, label, placeholder, and validation. So let's add label, and this will be captured from field label. Next we have placeholder, which will be field placeholder, and also let's add name property, which will be name as field name. And here, respective to this form, we will have this form closing. Now let's navigate to the browser, and if we'll click on add user, yes, we have these 3 input fields rendered based on the given type. Now we can render more fields. So next I will render select. Okay, so here in this custom form, the second will be for select. So let's add case, which is type of select, and let's add break statement. Now inside this, let's use flux select. So better I will navigate to this official documentation of Flux UI, and here I will use this select component. So we have this flux select here we can pass wire model. So regarding the data binding, I will come to this part later. Firstly, let's render the form inputs. So after this flux select, we can pass placeholder property, which will be placeholder, and we have field placeholder here. If we have this placeholder, then it will render that. Else I will add one default as select option, so that if you have missed for any of the form, this will have a default placeholder. And also let's render the label. So better to copy it from here and add it. Next, what we need option. So I will copy this option and inside this select, I will paste it. Okay. Now in between the option, we have to iterate those all options which we have defined inside this select options. So let's iterate these options. So I will use for each filled options array as value, and also we need label as well, right? Which will be just like label, and we'll have and for each statement. Now inside this option, firstly let's render this label, and also we need value. So here I will use value property. So better to use colon value because we will be using this $value directly. Now if we'll navigate to the browser in order to check, if we'll click on add user, yeah, we have this nationality field rendered, and if we'll click on this, we have two options rendered. Now next, I will add one condition in order to render the text area. So what I will do, I will add one more field, just like some short description about user, name, email address, phone number, and here after this, I will define type as text area, which will be short description. This will be description, short description, and in the placeholder we can enter a short description. And regarding the validation, I will set this to nullable, means optional, and max will be 255. This will have string. Okay. Now based on this, let's handle the condition here. So now in the next, we have case third, which will be for text area. Okay. I will use case text area. We'll have this break statement, and for this we will have to use text area component. So better I will copy and paste this input one, and here we'll change this to text area. And for the text area, I will add row properties, which will be rows, and by default I will set this to 2 row, or better we can handle this dynamically. So firstly I will check it from field which will have rows. If it is there, then it will be rendered, else by default I will set this to 2. So here in the array, we can define rows just like 2 or 3. Now if we'll check out, if we'll click on add user, yeah, we have this short description text area rendered. We have this nationality. Now let's add for file input, because in the data array we have image as well. So let's navigate to this form component, and next we will have for file or image. So this will be case image, and I will combine one more case as file. So for both, just like if you have added image or file, this will have a single component. Okay. And we will have break statement. Now here I will use flux input component itself with type property, and we will have this type of file, Okay. So better I will remove this column because this is not a variable. And in the label for form label, I will pass field label itself, and we can set accept property. Okay. So that this file will accept the given accept condition, which will be like type of image or other types of file. So here we will capture this dynamically as field accept, and that we can define it here in this as accept. If it is image, then this will accept image only, just like this. And here for the file, I will add a few tailwind classes, just like class display block and width full, text sm, and for the label I will set text gray as 500, and for the file I will give some margin from right and padding y of 2, padding x 4, and there will be some rounded corner which will be rounded LJ, and this will be border none. And for the file I will set text sm, the file font will be semi bold, and the file background will be indigo, and I will set this to 100. File text color will be indigo 700. This is optional, you can style it as per the need. And also I will add hover property, hover file bg indigo, I will set this to 200. Okay, this is enough. And also for the file, if we have information text that we have added here as info, if it is there, then also we'll have to render it. So let's add info text. Firstly, we'll check if is set info, which is inside field. All right. Then we have to render it inside flux text component. Okay. And let's add size as a small, just for the information. And we'll have this flux text closing. Now in between this flux, I will render the label. So we have field info, Nifl checkout. Yeah, just below this file, we have this label rendered. And here just before this label, I will add one flux icon. So better to use flux icon component, and I will use information circle component here, and we'll add class as margin right of 1, and the variant will be micro, so that we will have a small icon. And if we'll check out, and we'll have to make it in a single line by adding flex class. So here in the flex text itself, I will add class as flex text gray as 500, items center and margin top of 2. Okay. And yes, this is fine. Now next we will render the button. So we can handle more cases here based on the given types, just like if you have checkbox, radio buttons, multi-select. Okay, then you can add more conditions here as per the defined fields. As of now, I have added these only. Now after this and for each, I will use one flux separator component, which will be like this, will create a dash flux separator, and the variant will be subtle. And here I will render the form buttons. So for rendering the buttons, firstly I will create one div which will have flex, and I will set items center, justify end, because I want buttons to be rendered in the right alignment. So I will give gap of 2 and margin top 4. And I will use for each statement again fields. Inside the fields array we have buttons, right? This will be as $button. Now inside this for each, I will use Flux button component. Again, I'm using Flux UI component for every components. Now here, let's add button type property, which we have defined here as type of submit. Okay. So this will be type as button type. Further, we have icon as well. Label, variant and icon. So this will be icon. This is from button icon variant. We have button variant. And in between the button, I will display the label. So this will have button label. This is done. Now if we'll check. Yes, we have this button rendered. And also we can pass the color property as well. So after this, I will use color and I will set color as dynamic. So let's capture it, dynamic color as blue, and I will pass it here as color blue. Now if we'll check out, oh, okay, we have to pass color. Let's save and let's navigate to the browser. And if we'll click on this, yes, the form has been rendered with these input fields and we have this button as well. We can add this flux separator just above this. So let's copy this separator, and in this user form, just after this, I will add this separator so that we will have one horizontal line here. So the form has been rendered. Now we have to work on the form submission and data binding, right? So let's bind form data against every inputs. So here we will be using wire model directive. So let's start from this type of input. So I will be using wire model dot live properties so that we will have form validation handling in the real time. Now inside this, I will pass property dynamic, which will be like field name. We have this field name, but this is our child component. That means we are calling this common component inside one of the parent component. So better, I will append one key as form data just before this form data dot, and we will have dynamic field as form data dot name, form data dot email. Okay, this will help mapping the form data while populating this form and also for the validation. So let's copy this and add for others, and for this text area, for this file as well. And here in the button, I will apply one class property as well, class and cursor pointer. Now let's handle this submit functionality. So we have defined this form submit handler. Let's copy this event and let's navigate to this custom form class. Now after this mount, here in this same, I will define submit handler. This is public function submit handle, because this is our common component. So firstly, we will have to handle this submission functionality inside its class, and then from here we will dispatch one event to its respective parent component. Okay, so that from there we will insert data into the database. Now inside this function, I will check click handler. Okay, and if we'll click on this add user, let's click on this create. Yes, this submit handler is working. Now let's proceed for the form validation first, because before submitting this form, firstly we'll have to validate all the form fields based on the validation which we have defined here. All right. So let's apply the validation dynamically inside this form. So what we'll have to do when the form has been rendered, we will have to apply all the validations to these respective fields. So what I will do here in the mount itself, I will iterate these all fields which we are receiving as a props. So inside these fields, we have the key as fields for the form inputs. Okay, this one. Now if it is there, then okay, else it will have empty array. And let's iterate as field. All right. Now inside this for each loop, we have to initialize form data. Firstly, we'll have to initialize this form. Now here we will have to set the initial form data. So what I will do, I will define one public variable which will be type of array as form data, and I will initialize it with empty array. So this variable will be responsible for capturing the form data, because in this custom form we bound all the input in a key which is form data, right? So this is basically an array of variable which will have multiple fields captured, right? So that's why we have defined this form data here. So what it will do, when this component will be mounted, we will initialize with empty or default value for every inputs. And also this will be helpful when we will perform edit and view functionality. That time we will have to pre-populate the form with the initial data, right? So we will write $this form data, in which I will post this field name as a key, and I will check if we have type of file, then for that we will have to make it null, else for other fields we will set this to empty string. So in array, I will check if field type is type of file or image, then it will be null, else it will be empty string. All right, this is default initialization. Now in the next step, we will have to set the validation rule. So what I will do, I will check if not empty field validation key. That means if array has this validation key which we have defined for every input fields, if it exists, then we will apply those validation rules. So I will create one more public variable as public $rules array. Okay. And next I will set all the validation rules which are we getting dynamically from the props. So I will set $this rules, and inside this I will pass form data dot, and which will have field name. So this will form name just like form data dot name, form data dot email. Okay, because in the same way we bound these all form inputs. So this will match the same rule. Okay. And next we will have to assign the validation rule, which we will be getting using field validation key from here. Okay. So this will have field just like form data dot name, and the rule will be like required and something others. Okay. Now in order to customize this validation, okay, this is done. Now let's call this validation also in this submit handler as well. And here firstly let's dump $this rules in order to check form validation rules which we have set dynamically for input fields. So if we'll submit this form, we have the validation rules applied for name, email, phone number, short description, nationality, and avatar, which are correct. So now based on this, we can apply validate function here. So I will call $this validate function, and this will have this rules. So I will pass rules as named parameter, and also we can set attributes in the second parameter in order to customize the validation error message based on the given name. So for that, what I will do here, after this rules, I will create one more array as public, which will have validation attributes, and again this will be array. Now inside this array, I will set attributes just like $this validation attributes. Inside this, I will pass form data dot, and I will concat field name. If it is there, then I will replace it with field label. Okay, if it is not there, then I will replace it with name field, so that we will have custom validation attributes. So we will have to pass this here as a second argument. So I will pass attributes. So in the second argument, we have attributes, and I will pass $this validate, which is validation attributes. So this will return validated data. Okay. If we'll put dump and die validated data here, and if we'll navigate to the browser, and if we'll submit this form, yeah, this thrown validation error, but we are able to see validation error for only one field, which is nationality. So let's navigate to the code editor again, and in this custom form view, here for every inputs we have added named attribute. So that we will have to remove because we have bound all input fields with wire modal.live directive. So we will have to remove this from this input field, and let's check for text area. This one, okay. Yeah, this is done. Now let's navigate to the browser again, and let's try submitting this form again. Yes, after removing the name attribute, yeah, we are able to see all the validation rules for the required fields, right? For the description, we added rules as nullable and also for the file. So that's why for these two fields, the validation errors have not thrown. Now we will check real-time validation here, because currently when I'm typing, the real-time validation is not applying. However, we have used wire modal.live directive, but this is our child component. So that's why this is not able to trigger that. So we will have to write that forcefully by adding one more function, which will be basically attribute. So this is another lifecycle method which is updated. So Livewire will detect automatically whenever any input will be updated from the form. It will detect if it has value or not. Then based on that, this will trigger the validation. So we will define one more function as updated. This is inbuilt function basically. And here I will get the property name, which is updating. This will be property name. Okay. This is for real-time validation. Now inside this function, I will check if the property name starts from the form data, because again, we have added this form data dot, right, for every input. So we have to check if str means a string starts with, and we have to check it in the property name, and the key will be form data dot. If it starts from form data dot, and we will have this closing here. Okay. Now inside this if condition, we have to call validate only function, which is Livewire function basically. So it will apply validation for this given property only. So let's pass this property name and the rule for this property. Now in this third argument, I will pass empty array for the custom message. And also this will replace the attribute we have set here. So let's copy this validation attribute and let's add it inside this. So this is done. Now if we'll check out the browser and if we'll try submitting the form. So initially this has triggered all the validation errors for every inputs. Now if we'll try entering some value against every fields, just like name, now you can see the validation error has gone in the real time when we entered some value. Same thing for the email. Now if we'll enter correct email address, now this thrown error as this email is already been taken. So if we'll change something, yeah, this is accepted. Same thing for other fields, phone number, for description, okay, and nationality. So the validation errors are working for every fields in the real time. Now let's work on this submit functionality. So in the submit handler, firstly we'll have to make sure we are uploading file here. So for handling the file or image, we have to use Livewire trait with file uploads. So let's include this trait here in this common, which is custom form component itself. So at the top here I will use with file uploads. Okay. So for handling the file, we want to be able to send file object from child component to parents. So what we will have to do, we will have to upload the file here in this child component itself. And after storing the file, we will send the file path to the parent component in order to store the file path into the database. So that I will handle it here on submit only. So after validating the fields, I will handle the file. So what I will do, firstly, I will fill up the form and I will submit it so that we will check what we are getting in the data. Test user, I have entered some random values here. Description, nationality. I will select one profile picture. So I have chosen this image. Now I will click on create, and on create, we have the validated data here in this form data array, right? So we are getting all the values here in the form of array, which are validated data. So we have to extract the file from this avatar array, right? So let's handle it. So what I will do, from this validated data array, I will extract this form data so that we will have these all fields, right? So here for the form data, we have to get it from this form data. If it is there, then okay, else it will be empty array. And I will assign this to a different variable, which is form data. Now in order to handle the file, firstly we'll have to iterate all the data which are input fields basically from this fields, right? So I will use for each $this fields. Inside this we have the fields as field. Now inside this field, firstly I will extract the field name, which is field name, and then we will have to handle file here. So for handling the file, firstly I will check if in array field type is file or image, that we have already set inside this array, right? We have type as image. So later if you are uploading different file for any of the module, you can set this type file. So accordingly I will set condition here for both. If field type is image or file for both, then I will get that value from the form data. Because when we have uploaded the image and submitted the form, we got the data inside this form data key, right? So we will get it from this form data. So this I will get it from form data, which is this form data, and I will pass this dynamic name. If it is there, then okay, else I will initialize it with null. And I will capture this in a variable as value. Now next I will check if value is instance of temporary uploaded file, because Livewire stores file temporary before uploading it to the storage. So I will check if value is instance of temporary uploaded file, okay, which is from Livewire. If it is the file instance, then we have to store the file in the storage. So for storing the file, what I will do, I will get the dynamic directory name, because based on different modules of the application, we cannot keep all the files or images in a single directory. So it is better to store the files or images dynamically based on module name, right? So from here in the user form, in this array itself, I will pass one more key as upload directory, okay? And this will store the files in the avatars directory, because this is for user profile picture. So I will copy this key, and here I will get the key from field upload directory. If we have set the directory name, then this will be stored in that, else I will set one default directory as uploads, and I will capture this in a variable as upload directory, just like this. Now we have to store the image. So for storing the image, I will be using a store function, and inside this store function, I will pass this upload directory, okay? And this upload directory will be created inside public of a storage folder. And we have to reassign this file path, meaning uploaded file path, in the same key, which will be form data avatar, right? So for that, let's assign this file path in the same, which will be form data, that key, okay? This is done. Now after uploading the file, here we will have to send, means submit the data to the parent component, so that there we can insert into the database. But before inserting that, let's put dump and die form data, so that we will be able to check what we are going to submit to the parent component from here. So let's navigate to the browser, and here I will fill up this form quickly. Description, nationality, and I will select one image. Now I will click on create, and yes, in the form data, if you'll check here in the avatar, we are getting the uploaded file path instead of file object, right? Now we will be sending this form data to the parent component by dispatching one event, and we will have to listen that event in its respective component, right? So for dispatching the event, again, this will be dynamic, because this is going to be our common form component, which will work across entire project. So we cannot set the static event here. So let's say currently we are working for user module only, and this data will be submitted to user form, right? And there we will insert into the users table. Now later, if we will have another module like to do or project, then from this form, we will have to dispatch one event to their respective parent components, so that there we will capture these data, and there we will have to handle the database operations. So we will have to pass the props from this user form itself. From here, we have called this custom form component, right? So let's pass one more key, which will be submit event basically. And this will be Livewire event, and we will have to listen it. So I will give the name of the event, just like save user form. Okay, this is done. Now we will have to capture this props inside this custom form component in this mount method. So in the mount method, let's define string submit event, and I will initialize it with empty string, and also I will define it at the top as public $submit event, and here I will initialize it with one static value which will be form submitted. Okay, now I will copy this submit event, and here before initializing this form data, I will check if we have submit event, then I will assign this to public variable, just like this. Now in the form submit handler, here this is handle submit. From here I will dispatch that event. So we are dispatching event to parent component. Okay. So for dispatching the event, we will be using Livewire 3 dispatch function, and there inside this function I will pass this dynamic event name which is submit event, and also we have to pass this form data. Right, this is done. Now we have to listen this event in our component class which is user form here. So just below this property, here we have already listened one event for opening the model. Just here I will listen that event using on attribute again, on save user form, and I will create function as save user. Now inside this function we have to receive the form data, right? So I will capture in a variable just like form inputs. Now for creating the user, we need name, email, and password as per the user stable migration. So if we'll search for user stable migration, we have the default fields as name, email, email verified, and password. But as per the form, we have fields like name, email, phone number, description, nationality, and profile picture as well. So we will have to create one more migration in order to add few more fields inside the users table. So I will use PHP addition make migration add columns in users table, and I will specify the table as users. Let's hit enter, and yes, the migration has been created. Now in the new migration, I will define a few fields which will be like table, string, and we need phone number first. I will set this to nullable. Further, we need avatar, which will be nullable again. Thereafter, we need description. So for the description, I will define text. Okay. Let's check what we else needed. We needed nationality. So after avatar, here I will define string for nationality. Now in the down method, we have to drop these columns. So let's define these all one by one. $table drop column, and let's pass phone number. Further, we need description, and next we have nationality, and lastly we need avatar. This is done. Now respectively, we have to update the fillable property in the users model. So inside the models user, after the password, I will add phone number. Next we need description, avatar, and nationality. Okay, this is done. And before migrating the migrations, let's set the order of the fields. So for the phone number, I will set it after password, and rest other columns will be just after the respective columns, which will be phone number, description, and nationality. Okay, this is done. Now let's navigate to the terminal and let's migrate this schema. Okay, migration has been updated. Now in the next step, let's work on the submit functionality. So for the submit functionality, here in this user form, here we will have to work on this. So in this form inputs array, we have to push the password field because in the users table, we needed password as well. So what I will do, I will define form fields just like form inputs, password, and I will use hash make, and inside this, for generating the password, I will be using str facade random function, and I will generate 6-digit random password and I will encrypt it using hash. Let's import these two facades. Okay, this will be from eliminate support str. Now after this, I will put dump and die form inputs. So we will check what we are getting from this form. I will click on add and let's submit this form quickly. Description, nationality, and also the profile picture. I will click on create. On create, yeah, we have these all fields. Now I think for the short description in the DB, we kept as description only. If I will verify it, yeah, this is description, and also in the migration. So we have to manipulate that key before storing this to the database. So what I will do here again for this form inputs, I will set description, or better we can manipulate that in the form itself. So I will navigate to this array here, and in this wire model dot live attribute, I will change this key as description only. Okay, now we will be receiving description as description, so we won't have to manipulate the array before submitting it to the database. Now we can insert this array directly into the users table. So I will be using user model directly here, create function. If you need, you can separate this code by creating a separate class. Okay, currently I'm writing all the business logic here just for the simplicity, and I will pass form inputs directly inside this. This is done. Now after inserting this, we can dispatch one toast message so that we can handle it in the front end. So that is up to you. I'm not going to cover this because I have already covered this multiple times. So from here we can dispatch event just like toast, and we can set this just like type of success, message just like user created successfully. Okay, this is done. And after submitting this form, let's close this model. So I will be using flux model close, and inside this I will pass user form model, which we have user form model inside this user form, this one. So we will have to close this here, and also we will have to reset the form fields. So for that, let's define one common function just like reset the form, because this is parent child level hierarchy. From here we cannot reset the form directly, we have to reset the form data only. So I will create one function as reset. Okay, now I will navigate to the browser and I will create some entries. So I will quickly fill up the form with some random name as programming fields, programming@test.com. I will give some phone number, description using Livewire 3, nationality, and I will select profile picture. I'll click on create. On create, we have not received any message because we have not captured the toast, and also this model has not closed. But if we'll check out to the database, so I will search for database.sqlite, and in the users table, let me sort this data in the descending format. Yes, here we can see we have this programming fields: name, email, password, created, updated, phone number, description, nationality, and avatar. These all fields have been saved here. So by using this way, we can make this form reusable. Okay, now the same form we can apply it for view and edit functionality as well. All right, so that I will cover in the next video, and also we will work on some enhancement part of this. So that's all for this video. We now have our reusable form component in Livewire 3 with Laravel 12 Starter Kit that handles multiple input types, files and image uploads, dynamic validation rules, and reusable button things. Now in the next video, we will work on some enhancement part of this. Also, we will add image preview. Then we will work on view and edit functionality. If you found this video helpful, hit the like button, subscribe for more Laravel and Livewire tutorials, and let me know in the comments what other reusable components do you want me to cover next. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.